You're awesome. I'm Jeremy Andrew Davis, and today I wanted to share with you the things that I've been learning about the cause of fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, as well as other functional diseases. And that's oftentimes the first thing that people who have these conditions learn, is that they're what's called functional diseases. What that is basically there is no physical observable issue structurally, chemically, with the body, but something is not functioning properly on a neurological level. Now, one of the next things that people learn about their functional condition is that modern medicine doesn't really offer much in the way of solutions for this. And so I want to talk with you about the science behind what is going on in the body to create the symptoms that I used to experience and many of you are experiencing with these conditions. Now, it's going to be pretty sciencey, so there's going to be a lot of big words. Bear with me, and I do have my notes here behind the camera, so if I'm looking up a bit more than normal, just know I'm making sure that I get my facts straight. So, we believe that the mind controls the body, and that is true. The mind does control the body, but we need a new paradigm and a fuller understanding in that the body also controls and affects the mind. It's an interdependent system. Our whole bodies, every part of the system affects all other parts of the system. And so the way the nervous system works is that the brain sends signals to the nerves, and the nerves send signals to the brain. And when we have entrapment or compression of those nerves, we get mechanoreception issues. Mechanoreception, if you're not familiar with that term, what that means is, very simply, when we get some sort of sensory input into one of our five senses, mechanoreception is our ability to receive those signals and process them in our minds, in our brains, and then appropriately respond. And so when you have a mechanoreception issue, there is a problem in the communication somewhere in the system, whether that's signals from the nerve endings up to the brain, or the signals from the brain back down to the nerve endings. So in conditions like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, also known as ME, in these functional conditions, what is happening is there's an imbalance between the excitatory postsynaptic potentials, or IPSPs, and inhibitory postsynaptic potentials, or IPSPs. And I don't fully understand the scope of all the little details of the chemicals and how they send those signals, but I do know that there needs to be a balance between those two types. So what's happening in these functional conditions like fibromyalgia and ME is there is an imbalance between the types of signals that are being sent. There's an imbalance between the inhibitory and the excitatory. You don't need to worry about exactly what those mean. Just understand at this point that there needs to be a balance between the two types of signals. What happens is when our nerves become entrapped or compressed, there is a breakdown in that communication. And so, unfortunately, modern medicine has forgotten basic neurophysiology. And basic neurophysiology demonstrates that control over the body happens with the brain, but there's also a lot of control over the brain with the body. We need the understanding of both is happening, and both need to be in balance with each other. When we have a lot of signals coming down from the brain, but we don't have enough signals coming from the body to the brain, there's a breakdown. And our bodies have symptoms from that. That can be pain, that can be fatigue, that can be insomnia, that can be improper blood circulation or poor digestion, and any slew of different things, because the one system that controls all function in the entire body is our nervous system. The nervous system is what communicates and makes the full system of the circulatory system to the muscles, everything work together in unison. So when there is a breakdown in communication there is a breakdown in our health. Unfortunately, modern medicine has forgotten basic neurophysiology and how neurophysiology demonstrates the control that the body has over the brain when nerve entrapment or compression exists. This results in a lack of proper joint movement and accurate mechanoreception. There is constant communication between the central nervous system and the rest of the body. And the central nervous system is the spinal cord and the brain. Then there's the peripheral nervous system outside of that. And there's constant communication in between all parts of the body and that central nervous system. And the way this works is that a sensory stimulus is perceived by the person, and it's at the level of peripheral sensory receptor, or a nerve ending. Now that signal travels through the nerve fibers. Now when it's going from the nerve fibers to the brain, that is called afferent, A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. It's using afferent nerve fibers to send signals to the brain. And so we perceive the sensory input. It goes up the spinal cord to the thalamus, goes from the thalamus to the hypothalamus and the cerebral cortex. And then it goes back down the cord to the stimulated area. So there is a signal that goes from the stimulus all the way up to the cord, up the cord to the brain, from the brain, down the cord, down to where you feel it. There's a loop. So what happens is, in people with functional diseases, there is a breakdown in afferent signals. Those signals are not getting through to the brain because of nerve compression or restriction. So here's an example of how mechanoreception would look in somebody, let's say, with fibromyalgia, because that's what I had. You receive the stimulus, and on the stimulus, the nerve goes up, and somewhere there is a mix-up in what is being communicated. And that mix-up can happen anywhere between the initial point of stimulus and being received in your brain. So, if I have compression in my neck, if I have restriction in my neck, in my nerves, that can short-circuit that signal. And my brain, in fibromyalgia, would go, this is pain. My body is telling me that this point is being damaged by this touch. So I am going to send the signal that there is pain happening here, so that the person goes, oh, I need to avoid this. This is damaging my body. And it's caused by that compression or entrapment of the nerve. So what we have to do is address the compression and entrapment. And from what I've learned with people with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, those kinds of things, that entrapment, that compression, oftentimes is happening in the neck. And if you're having that in the neck, that is affecting all the signals from the rest of the body. And so you have to address the neck first and relieve the cause. Once you relieve the cause, you can be like me and be cured of fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and any other functional disease caused by this issue. That is a challenging and multifaceted process, but it is possible. So when there is a breakdown in communication from the periphery to the central nervous system, that is called deafferentation, because our brain is getting less signals that are afferent, and where there is that compression, there is a breakdown in communication. The brain is not receiving as many A-type signals as it is sending signals to the rest of the body to keep the body doing its autonomic responses. And so what we need to do is balance those types of signals so that there is equal amount of signal coming in as going out. Part of this is balancing those inhibitory postsynaptic potentials with the excitatory postsynaptic potentials. Now, again, this video is all covering the basics of the science behind why we have all experienced these kinds of symptoms. I'm not in this video going to be able to go into all of the details of how to overcome that. This is just a basis to get you to have understanding, because once you have understanding, then we can start addressing the cause. There's a lot of different techniques that I have used and that I have been taught in order to bring my system more and more in balance. I am still out of balance, but I'm in balance enough that I am not symptomatic with fibromyalgia. I am not having insomnia. I am not having chronic fatigue symptoms, and so therefore I am cured. The keys with all of this is relieving the nerve compression and the nerve entrapment throughout the whole body, but especially beginning in the neck, and then also increasing the ability to have afferent nerve signals from the body be sent and received appropriately within the central nervous system. Hopefully you learned something in this video and gained something from it. I'm sure you have tons of questions. As I have time, I definitely want to be making more of these videos, and I will be. Please be patient. Thank you very much for your patience. In the meantime, you can subscribe and hit the notification bell so that when I am able to put out another video, you will be notified that it has come out and you can watch it right away. Thanks for watching, and elevate.